For more than 4 decades, Mike Satz has been the Broward State Attorney, a record run, but he decided to step down.
And that set off a fierce competition to succeed him. And it's come down to 2 candidates. Harold Pryor is the Democrat in the race, and Gregg Rossman, a Republican, who is an assistant Broward State Attorney for 20 years, rising to head the career criminal unit. He tried serious felony cases. He opened his own law firm 6 years ago. And there he is right now with us live from his home in Hollywood. Good morning. And first question to you, why did you leave that office in the first place?
Good morning, Glenna. Good morning, Michael. Thanks for having me on. The goal was to be there 30, 35 years and retire anonymously, hopefully having served the members of Broward County honorably. After 20 years in the office, though, it was time both for a change. I believe it's time for a change both within the office, and certainly I could not affect that in the role I was in. And so definitely a time for a change for me. I never lost sight of the mission, and there's no mission in law like that of being a prosecutor and standing up in court on behalf of those who can't speak for themselves. But it was time for some renewal for me, so that's why I left.
Yeah, Mr. Rossman, you have said on the campaign trail in your questionnaire for the Sun-Sentinel editorial board that that office is sort of stagnant. It needs to be shaken up. It needs to be sort of reconfigured. Give us some specific ideas. What would you do if you were elected?
Absolutely. So there's a bunch of specialized units in the state attorney's office as it consisted of now. And some of those reflect priorities from the 70s and 80s. One thing that is, in my opinion, woefully inadequate is the focus on elder abuse. So I will create an elder abuse unit that will have 3 or 4 lawyers, a paralegal, an investigator. We will create a template on how to prosecute those cases, and we'll teach law enforcement how to prosecute those cases. That's one direct example. To do that, we're going to have to consolidate some other specialized units where, for instance, back in the 70s, 80s, we had a drug trafficking unit that was very, very, very busy. Now, they're busy now, but not in the ways they were in the 70s and 80s. So we may not need the assets in that area as we will in elder abuse. One of the other things that we're going to do is we're going to make sure that we train both our prosecutors and our law enforcement. There's a big gap between those two. The state attorney's office is never really directly connected with law enforcement and put demands on law enforcement that they deliver very, very specific deliverables to the state attorney's office and to the taxpayers of Broward County.
Mr. Rossman, you are running, this whole campaign takes place in a post-George Floyd world, rightfully so. Racial inequities in criminal justice reform right there on the front burner. What do you say to the people of Broward? How will you take that office into this new world and criminal justice reform, specifically to solve racial inequities in the criminal justice system and possibly in your own office?
I will absolutely tell everybody that the people who suffer the most from the racial inequities and disparities in the criminal justice system are victims. I was there for 20 years. I prosecuted hundreds of homicide cases. I tried 65. About 85% of the victims in those cases were people of color, black or brown. So they suffer the most when the system fails. So it's not just the disparities. What I heard on the campaign trail from the other side was all the disparities in reference to punishment and sentencing. Nobody spoke about the disparity of crime as it is impacting those in the community. And there's a disparate impact on those in black and brown communities. If we pull back policing, they don't pull back out of Coral Springs and Parkland. They pull back out of economically disadvantaged areas. So I will focus all of our efforts on prosecuting career criminals and serious crimes, no matter what your race is, no matter what your ethnicity is, no matter what your gender is, however you identify. We're going to focus our efforts on those small group of people that commit a large number of crimes. And we can't just look for simple answers. We cannot pull out one statistic, somebody's gender or somebody's race, look at the DOC population and say, therefore, that gives us a formula. We need to look at data much, much deeper, and we need to rely on that data, believe in science, believe in the data, and follow what the data tells us are good solutions.
Yeah. Mr. Rossman, before we leave you here, and I'm sorry we don't have more time, you are a Republican in a predominantly Democratic county. I mean, there are a number of people, and maybe Glenna and I are among them, who believe that the state attorney should be a nonpartisan office. Nevertheless, it certainly is. It elects Republicans, Democrats. Do you think that Democratic voters in Broward, the fair-minded people, are going to elect a Republican?
I do, and thank you, Michael, for even asking that question, because you just hit it on the head. Fair-minded people. You know, leaving labels aside all of us want the same things. We want clean air, we want clean water, we want safe streets. All of us, Democrats, Republicans, Independents, whatever your party affiliation is. And I have very, very strong ground support from Democrats. I'm born and raised here. I'm a second-generation Miamian. Everywhere I've been involved in Broward County my entire life, most of my friends are Democrats. They know me as something other than just as a prosecutor. I'm a husband, a father, a little league coach, softball coach. And in all those other areas, the charity work that I've done, those areas, those people know me. They know me for who I am. And they want somebody who's qualified to do the job. And I'm qualified because I've done the job. So I know the job. And I don't think somebody who is now going to be on their 7th job in 7 years, no disrespect to Mr. Pryor, but if Michael, you were trying to hire him to work on your show, if you were his 7th employer in 7 years, I think you'd take some pause as to hiring him. And that's what we're asking the voters to do. This is a job interview. Decide which person you think is most qualified, leaving aside party affiliation. Let's just look at the qualifications. And as you said, be fair-minded.
Gregg Rossman, great to meet you virtually, and thank you for your time today. Good to have you aboard.
Thank you both. I appreciate it very much.